Hey, and welcome back to AWitchAlone's podcast. I'm your hostess Danielle, and we'll be continuing with the mini-series on the tools of the trade, talking about the Cauldron. The Cauldron is one of the most symbolic tools in a witch's arsenal, and a piece of equipment that has been used for centuries, regardless of spiritual or religious background. Obviously, the first and foremost use was cooking, which can be associated with life-giving, life-preserving, and healing. Soups and stews were cooked for huge families, special ingredients were added to help with certain ailments, and there's a reason when you have a cold, the first thing people suggest, and maybe the first thing you crave, is soup. Cauldron comes from the Latin word caldaria, which means cooking pot. So cauldrons were giant pots, and they were/are used to boil down herbs, bones, and for cooking and cleaning. It was an incredibly multi-use tool for our ancestors. If you didn't have a pot, there was a chance you wouldn't be able to do some of the basic tasks needed to survive or feed your family. Cauldrons are one of the tools that encompass all of the elements in one. Earth, via the material it is constructed out of, water for the water boiled inside it, fire, being able to handle the extreme heat, and air, via the steam or smoke that raises from it. For the most part, in rituals or spells, your cauldron is used to place burning objects, paper or herbs, so that they may burn safely. Or you can use it as a candle holder if you don't have one, or extra ones. It's not often you will see boiling needed, and if you do need to boil something for a spell, there's no reason why you can't use a regular kitchen pot in your stovetop. Cauldrons are very much associated with the female archetype, not just because witches were mostly seen as women, but also because of the cauldron that is symbolically inside a woman. It is often denoted that the womb and uterus has been seen as a cauldron, something that can grow and create without much effort. Just like putting a bunch of ingredients into a stew and putting the heat on simmer, it cooks and becomes something new without much need of watching. This is one of the reasons why cauldrons are associated with life-giving. It is also associated with wisdom and knowledge, and one of the best-known legends of wisdom featuring cauldrons is that of the Celtic goddess Cauldron and her cauldron. In a nutshell, Cauldron created a potion of great wisdom to try and make up for her son that had been cursed with being hideous. She entrusted the stirring to a young boy named Gwen for a year and a day. Only the first 3 drops would be required, and after that the potion would go rancid. On the last day, Gwen stirred too fast out of excitement and splashed the first 3 drops of scalding potion on his hand. In a knee-jerk reaction, he stuck his hand in his mouth and was granted all the wisdom and knowledge. He ran from the furious goddess but was eventually caught. So how do you pick your cauldron? Is there a wrong or a right way to pick one? I think in this day and age, there isn't so much of a right or a wrong way, there is just your way. I've read in several texts that cauldrons, in order to be considered a true witch's cauldron, need to have 3 legs. In today's modern world, this might not be an option for those that are monetarily stuck or practicing in the closet. My first cauldron was a French onion soup pot from the dollar store, because that's all I could afford/find. It was more about the money for me than anything else. Because the dish conducted heat a little too well, I had to make sure I always had a hot pad under it. It didn't look very witchy, but for someone at 14, it did the trick. I didn't buy my first real cauldron until about 7 years later. It's a small cast iron cauldron with 2 handles and the required 3 legs. You can actually find quite a few cauldrons on Amazon, which is not as magical as I'm sure you would like. But if you have Prime, and if for any reason the cauldron you were using, say it was glass or ceramic, and you dropped it, you could definitely use that feature to get a replacement very fast. There are quite a few occult and metaphysical shops online and in multiple geographic locations, but depending on your situation or location, getting to these points may be difficult. It's okay to go outside of the regular realm of acquiring tools if it's best and easiest for you. You don't have to go to a hole-in-the-wall witch shop that smells like sage and has a cranky old lady behind the counter with wavy gray hair in order to get your tools. It's okay. Just remember to cleanse your tool regardless of how you acquire it, which we will be going over in later episodes. That brings us to the end of this episode. This will be a bi-weekly podcast, so make sure to subscribe and turn your notifications on. Next time we will be discussing the chalice. This episode was brought to you by the tarot card, the 7 of Cups. The 7 of Cups is not always the most welcome card to see. It's usually a card of deception and temptation. If you pull this card, you might be tempted by money or cheating or anything like that. Sometimes it indicates that you can't see right from wrong. so it's best to step back from the situation for a little while until you get a more clear picture. If you're on Instagram or Twitter, swing by my page under the same handle, AWitchAlone, and if you follow from the podcast, make sure you say hi and tell me where you're listening from. I love meeting new followers. I had deleted my Twitter for a little while, but I am back on it now, so please come back and give me a follow. Until next episode, blessed be.